Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
And a happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. We got our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. And before we dive into some more advancements in the Kevin Durant Timberwolves flirtation here, gentlemen, a shout out to North American Banking Company. Since 1998, a Minnesota-based banking company, 6 locations across the Twin Cities. And whether you're buying a home and need help with the mortgage process, tackling a renovation, financing a car, or maybe setting up a new business, or you just want a better checking and savings experience, North American Banking Company can help give you peace of mind about where you bank and who handles your money. They focus on personal relationships and cutting-edge online tools. And like I said, they are one of us, so to speak. They are Minnesota-based. nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Reckless
hey, friends.
Speculation.
And a happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to the 3 of you guys.
Love this day. Love
Absolutely.
this day, Dukes.
Best day of the week. Nobody can debate it.
It is glorious. So, Dukes, we're going to throw something at you here. I feel like every day there's new advancements in the Kevin Durant saga here. There's another juicy thing that just came across Wolves related that we'll get to it in a few minutes. But on KD, there's now been multiple reports that basically the same teams that were interested in February at the deadline, Timberwolves, Rockets, there's a handful of teams, Spurs, are also in conversations. The KD group is weighing various offers right now. Sounds like a deal is going to get done one way or another in the next 2 weeks. But Jay Williams went on ESPN this morning, who's a noted close confidant of Kevin Durant. And he floated, he goes, it's in my opinion, Minnesota would be the best fit for Kevin Durant. Paul Pierce did the same thing last week. So you got these guys who are plugged into NBA circles saying, hey, this is just my opinion. I think Minnesota would be the best fit. Where do you think things stand right now, Minnesota, Kevin Durant? Darren?
Well, Phil, it's more than a flirtation. Now, on Jay Williams, is that his own opinion, perhaps? Or is he the voice for someone else who is tied very closely to Kevin Durant? But it's absolutely more than a flirtation. However you want to describe it, love fest, affair, I don't know how you exactly want to term it, but the Wolves are very much in on Kevin Durant. In fact, this morning, somebody who is very plugged in, whose professional livelihood is working in the game, maybe not necessarily firsthand with all this stuff, but has his finger on the pulse of a lot of what's happening in the league. He was the first person, a couple years ago, who told me, hey, the Wolves reached out to Sacramento about De'Aaron Fox. Then that picked up steam a little bit thereafter. So this person knows stuff. That's why I'm bringing this up. So it's a little above reckless speculation, but if we want to put it under the Thursday theme, reckless speculation, fine. But he texted this morning. I will read it verbatim. I'm hearing Minnesota is very much in play for Kevin Durant. But his verbatim was, I'm hearing Minnesota is very much in play, which I don't know if that's breaking news. It just hammers home what we've been discussing for a while, even going back to February. The idea that Tim Connolly, others with the Wolves, love the fit of KD here. Yes, it's nice that Anthony Edwards thinks the world of Kevin Durant, but even if he didn't, just from a basketball fit standpoint, KD would help this franchise a lot. Now, we can debate how much he can help them, but I'm just telling you, that is what I can gather. That is the thinking of many over at Mayo Clinic Square, that KD can rise them to another level.
So we're almost certainly talking about, if this were to happen with KD coming here, we're almost certainly talking about a multi-team trade, correct? That this would involve, I don't know, take your pick. The Rockets, another team, 3 or 4 teams probably end up in this dance if it gets done, correct?
Well, I mean, yes, I think it is going to be a complicated trade if it gets across the finish line, but you do have some ability with sign and trade, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like if you're trying to match dollar for dollar, it is possible to get there in a 1-for-1. Well, multiple players going out, but a 1-for-1 in terms of just operating with Phoenix, not involving a Houston Rockets team or someone else, Brooklyn, somebody like that has cap space. But yes, I would imagine if this thing happens, if Durant ends up with the Wolves here in the next 13 days, that yes, right now I would say probably it's a multi-team deal, but I'm not there dismissing the idea of just the Wolves and Suns working something out.
So if they did this, and let's say they kept Jaden McDaniels, and maybe the deal, and again there's like so many financial things in here in terms of like salary matching and what you'd have to get to. But let's say the bones of the deal were you either use Rudy and or Julius or both, and it's the veteran guys that you're saying goodbye to. And you keep Naz Reid, you keep Jaden McDaniels, you keep, maybe Dillingham has to go out as part of this just because you probably have to give some younger value, but you keep the bones of it. Ant, Jaden, Naz, Terrence Shannon Jr., and you're adding Kevin Durant to this thing. And maybe if you have to deal Rudy in the process, you wind up finding another rim protector through some other avenue. How do you guys feel about that? It's Ant and Durant, and it's Jaden and Naz and some of the other young guys, the Jalen Clarks and the Terrence Shannon Jr.s. I mean, if nothing else, it makes for a wildly fun upcoming season. Can they be on the level of Oklahoma City, Indiana? I think it would all depend on how good is a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. And if they have to deal Rudy as part of this process, how can they not slip to like 20th in team defense? Can they still be respectable on that end of the floor?
Well, to me, offense is more important than defense. Like if they just slip to like 18, 19, 20, but they are a top 5 offense, I would take that trade-off. I've made this point a couple times. I think there's a ceiling in the postseason with Rudy Gobert playing 30-plus minutes a game. Now, there's also a floor in the regular season. Like you are going to be a playoff team. And Rudy clearly deserves a ton of credit for helping this franchise get to where it's never gotten before 2 consecutive years, to the Western Conference Finals, back-to-back great seasons. But yes, if Rudy is the money to help make this work, I think you have to do it. Now, like if you're Brian Greger, if you're running the Suns front office, Phil, aren't you asking for Terrence Shannon Jr.? Or is it Rob Dillingham? Is it Dillingham going out? You're able to keep Shannon Jr. Is that the idea? Like Jaden McDaniels, you're right. I have yet to hear that Jaden McDaniels is on the table. I've said this. If somehow Milwaukee made Giannis available, okay. You put Jaden on the table. I think a lot of people understand that. You're not putting Jaden on the table in a Kevin Durant trade. So if KD ends up in Houston or San Antonio or somewhere else, fine, so be it. I'd be okay with that. I'm not giving up Jaden. More importantly, I have 0 sense the Wolves would give up Jaden McDaniels. But yeah, it would be something along those lines. Randall and or Gobert, Dillingham. Does DiVincenzo go? Or is it Nikhil in a sign-and trade? Can you keep pick 17? Do you give up pick 17? What about pick 31? It's not like the Suns have a bunch of picks the next handful of years. So yeah, Dillingham would be nice for them, but are they also looking for an additional pick? And so, yeah, you start wondering what the parts would look like. But bottom line, we know the Wolves are engaged on this front, and they're willing to do a lot. Like, the only untouchable truly is Ant, right? So,
yeah,
Jaden could go. I just don't think he's going for KD, but Jaden could go in some other deal. But, yeah, I mean, they're willing to do a lot. I mean, when I'm hearing that this morning, that the Wolves are very much in play, that to me signals they're willing to do a lot to bring KD here.
Reckless speculation.
A little further down the star player list here, but interesting nonetheless. From Mike Scotto, who is a senior NBA insider from Hoops Hype.
Mike is good. Yep.
Mike is very plugged in. He's not quite on the Shams, the formerly Woj level. He's not quite that level, but he's plugged in and he'll break stuff, right?
He has sources, I promise.
Yep. So he said the Timberwolves are interested in acquiring Lonzo Ball this summer and held primary talks in landing Lonzo Ball at the trade deadline last February. So Lonzo Ball, who many of you might have been like, oh, I haven't heard that name in quite some time because he missed 2 years with foot problems. He's been with Chicago for 4 years. He's only played 70 games in those 4 years because of the foot issues. Well, he came back last year ready to rock and roll. It was some other like soft tissue injury. It wasn't foot related that kind of knocked him out for the last part of the season. But he's still only 27 years old. He has, I believe, it's 1 year left on his contract in Chicago. It's 1 year, $10 million, and then a team option for $10 million. But this is a 6'6", 6'7", big-bodied, ball-handling point guard. He's not going to score 20 points a game, but he can rebound, he can defend, he can distribute, get open looks for others, and he sits out there and pretty much just chucks threes for his offense. But I'm intrigued by anyone that's between. The problem with the Wolves right now in point guard is they've got two options: a 38-year-old Mike Conley, who you're wondering, like, is he even an NBA player anymore going forward because he's that close to the age cliff, and then a 20-year-old Rob Dillingham. Is there something in between those two guys that can give you 25 minutes of reliable ball handling and initiation? And Lonzo Ball, with his size and with his facilitating ability, would seem to check those boxes. Health is still a major concern, but I wanted to bring that name to the table here officially. I kind of threw it out there as a fun, this kind of might be interesting.
Come up, maybe more so just, speculation-wise, although the Wolves have been tied to him previously, but credit to Mike for some new information there. Sure, I mean, if you don't land KD, or even if you do land KD, maybe you still have an asset or two that can head to Chicago, but let's say KD ends up in San Antonio or Houston. The Wolves are still looking to be active. There are plans B, C, D, E. We've mentioned this. I mean, right now, as currently constructed, what is the number one need? To me, it's a lot of what Lonzo Ball can do. Like, we went up and down the list of available free agents. Like, we wondered a couple weeks ago about Tyus Jones, right? Tyus is a lot like Mike Conley Jr., but Tyus would help. That the Wolves just need another point guard with the championship window certainly pretty darn wide open next year, with uncertainty whether Rob Dillingham is ready to play significant minutes next year. The Bulls in the past, and it's a lot of the same people there, have really liked Rudy Gobert. Now, to me, you're not moving Gobert for Lonzo Ball, but you start wondering, like, is Kobe White also available? Could it be a bigger trade? I'm just saying the Bulls have liked Rudy Gobert in the past. So what could some sort of concoction look like where Ball plus more ends up here and perhaps Gobert ends up in Chicago?
What's interesting is money-wise, I don't know if they would do this, but Vucevic, who is older than Gobert, I think he's like, was he 35? He'll be 35 in October.
Is he that old? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he has range, though. Like, to me, his game translates for a couple more years.
But that's the thing. He shot 40% from three, so he can actually help you space it and stretch it. He's not quite the defensive presence necessarily that Gobert is at his peak.
Not even close.
But salary-wise, he's got 1 year left and $21 million. So, like, Ball and Vucevic for Rudy Gobert and whatever else, little value pieces. Like, there are, like, mathematically, it actually does work. So, interesting.
Well, I mean, that would be something I would keep an eye on. When you bring up the Chicago Bulls, the first name that comes up on my end is absolutely Rudy Gobert. Not to say maybe that somebody else doesn't intrigue them here, but Gobert to Chicago, to me, makes a decent amount of sense. Now, like, I'd have to go deep into the weeds, but if I recall from the regular season, Billy Donovan tried to really push the pace, that Chicago played at an incredibly fast pace. Now, Billy Donovan is a really good coach. There's a reason why the Knicks reached out on Billy Donovan. There's a reason why the Chicago Bulls said no. I know it hasn't always been successful there in Chicago, but I'm a big Billy Donovan fan. I just remember Richard Pitino, others just speaking the world of Billy Donovan to me going back many, many years. And so I would think Billy could make it work, but I don't know if Chicago could play at the pace they played at this past season. But it's not like Chicago had a great year, right? So whatever the pace was, it didn't necessarily translate into a lot of wins. I'm just saying Gobert to Chicago Like that to me, that makes some sense. So Ball's coming here. Yeah, it has to be more. You're not moving Gobert for Ball straight up or anything along those lines, making the money work, throwing in a filler here or there. It has to be more. But I don't know. Like on the surface, that makes a lot of sense to me.
The only problem with Ball is this. So he's played 6 years. He's never played in more than 63 games in a season.
Oh, yeah.
That was 2019-20. And the past, and after he set out 2 seasons because of injury, sandwiched in between those are 2 years in which he played 35 games. So what's the risk there? Like, it sounds fine on the surface as far as the player that you would be getting, but we're talking about a guy who's had some pretty significant procedures done as well. That concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be bringing him in as like
Very
a final
significant.
piece. He wouldn't be
right.
like
No.
Drew Holiday coming in to
No.
make the Bucks or the Celtics a championship team, or Derek White coming in.
But I'm just saying, if he just can't play, then he's not a piece.
Yeah,
Then,
like to answer your point, he's like, if he can give you 40 or 50 games at $10 million, he helps provide some sort of middle ground between Conley, who you're like, if you go into the season with Conley and Dillingham, you're literally worried that Conley, A, might get injured too, and B, might not be able to play while Dillingham gets up to speed. Is there someone in there that can give you a buffer that's also not going to necessarily cost you Jaden McDaniels or your first round pick, et cetera? And Lonzo Ball kind of checks that box.
how good do we think Dillingham can be? Because he's a top 10 pick. I feel like we're sort of punting prematurely at times because he didn't play. But at the end of the day, Tim Connelly, who's a pretty smart basketball guy, took him, 8th overall in the draft last year. Dukes, how much upside do we think exists there? Because nothing drives me more crazy than making a judgment on a rookie player who didn't play a lot and deciding that means he's a bust.
I mean, he was a stud at overtime elite, had a good year, productive year his 1 year at Kentucky. I get it. He's undersized, but like he can get to the rim. Now, I don't know in the next few years, like, is he converting a lot of those shots at the rim? Is he missing a lot of shots? I mean, certainly, like, he is so undersized. Now, the comparison going back to pre-draft was Bones Highland, who was here, who hopes to be back on a 2-way or whatever that looks like. Bones had that really good rookie year in Denver, and since then has, for lack of a better way of putting it, has fallen off a cliff, right? So is he Bones Highland? Is he more than that? I certainly wouldn't give up on Dillingham. Now, to get KD, if you need to add in Dillingham,
Sure.
that I get.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sending Dillingham to Chicago in a Lonzo Ball trade.
Okay.
I still need to see more. Now, maybe it's just recency bias watching the finals. Like, you think about Tyrese Halliburton. Not that I'm suggesting that Rob Dillingham has the ceiling of Tyrese Halliburton, but could you argue Sacramento moved Halliburton way too prematurely? Heck, the Knicks moved Obi Toppin, a lottery pick, prematurely. And again, that might be, I'm watching the finals, right? So it's very much recency bias. By the way, credit to the Pacers. I thought the Thunder would win in 5. Clearly was wrong on that. But watching Halliburton and Toppin, I'm like, okay, like, be careful just shoving out the number 8 overall pick in the draft. Like, be very careful. Like, Dillingham as a 22, 23, 24-year-old may be a legit starter. I still need to see a bit more. Durant, I'm telling you, Durant, I understand. Fine. Championship window. Yeah, you're signing Durant to a contract extension. Fine. I don't know how many games Durant will play the next 3 years, but when he's on the court, I have no doubt that Durant is going to be a superstar. The shooting numbers are off the charts. That shot isn't going anywhere. So that I completely understand. For somebody like Ball, or even like if you want to bring up the name Drew Holiday, right? So the Celtics are going to trade Drew Holiday. Now, you'd have to get there money-wise. I don't even know what that would look like, but I don't know if I'm giving up Dillingham to bring in 35-year-old Drew Holiday, who I like, but Durant, that's another stratosphere. But yeah, it's a good question, Judd. I mean, I don't know. I need to see more. I'm just saying be very careful just peddling off the number 8 overall pick.
Yeah, I think we need to make some rules here for not that Tim Connelly needs our help with successful blockbuster trades, but if anyone's, I would say these players that are like 33 and older, so Kevin Durant is in that mix, Drew Holiday's in that mix, there's maybe a couple other guys. I am not giving up nucleus centerpieces. I would even hesitate on like Dillingham, to Doogie's point, selling low on him because he just didn't play much his rookie year. Now, if it's a 30-year-old Derek White, okay, and you think he's got a few years left of peak prime Derek White play and he's next to Anthony Edwards, let's have a discussion. Obviously Giannis, but there's been nothing on the Giannis front at all whatsoever, Timberwolves or otherwise. So I just think like if it's a needle moving superstar player or a two-way player that can help play next to Anthony Edwards and take this thing to a new level, and they are like 30 and under, okay, now we can talk about some of these younger pieces. But for the older guys, no, it'd have to be like Rudy or Randall, and maybe a draft pick, but we'll see.
Trae Young do anything for you?
So it's funny as a guy that just stumped for also be careful with Dillingham, these smallish guards that go into the trees and take bumps and don't play any defense, they're fun, and the NBA has a bunch of them. I mean, hell, Darius Garland is kind of that too, to some extent. John Morant has been that player. Durability-wise, they make me nervous. I don't think you can win a championship with one of those guys as like your focal point. Now, Dillingham on a rookie scale contract is like a third or a fourth scoring option at some point. All right, that's different. This is Anthony Edwards' team, and then Jaden McDaniels, and you've got some size. But boy, Trae Young and just some of the attitude stuff, like the body language stuff, makes me a little nervous. So I'd have to be convinced on Trae Young. Somebody would have to come in and say, no, here's where you're wrong.
I mean, you would have to give up a lot. I would not do it considering what you would have to give up to convince Atlanta. If Atlanta's moving him, they'd get any number of really good offers. So how do you trump others? I don't think I would go there. But I thought it was worthy of a little discussion. It gets back to the point of, okay, so the Wolves had some issues in clutch time. Heck, going back years now, clutch time. During the OKC series as well. So just needing another shot creator or two. Like if Gobert's on the floor, Jaden McDaniels is on the floor, like at times you can run into some offensive issues. Mike Conley Jr. on the floor, right? And so KD to me solves a good chunk of that. And so I'd be in on KD. I've actually come around a little bit. I'm not giving up Jaden, but I've come around a little bit on KD. Start to understand it more and more. People who know infinitely more than I have told me, yeah, the Wolves can get KD and pair him with Ann and Jaden stays. You do it. You do it. That, okay, maybe you've hit a ceiling with most of this core the last 2 years, even though it flipped after last year. We all understand that. But if you're going to advance further, you have a better shot with KD compared to without KD. So I've been convinced on KD. So I get it when I hear that the Wolves are, it seems that they are all in, for the most part, outside of putting Jaden on the table, trying to acquire KD.
Although Tim Conley works in mysterious, shadowy ways, boys. He works in mysterious ways. Yeah. He might want the Durant talk out there because behind the scenes, there's somebody we haven't thought of. The two big blockbusters this dude has made were nobody we were talking about. Like nothing we were talking about. And I find it intriguing. Think about this. The KD at the deadline talk with the Suns stayed quiet until it felt like about a week or so, at least after. You just brought up another trade at the deadline that I don't recall being talked about. Tim Conley is a stealth, in an era with like Shams and league partners breathing down your neck, paying millions and billions for information. Tim Conley is as stealth as it gets. I can't help but thinking, I wonder if the Durant thing might be a smokescreen of sorts. Probably not, but just throwing it out there.
I don't know if it's a smokescreen. I still think in the end,
I agree.
He ends up in San Antonio or Houston.
Sure.
I think the interest is legit, though. I do. I really do believe that. But okay, if you swing and miss on Durant, so who else could it be? Like, what does New Orleans do? Joe Dumars takes over in New Orleans. DeJounte Murray coming off a significant injury, but there's been previous interest in DeJounte Murray. Would Murray do anything for you?
I mean, it's an Achilles, right? I mean, and it was like halfway through the season or further. That pre-injury, we talked about him a couple of years ago. You had kind of broke open the conversations there.
That was another, right? So this front office, I'm just telling you, yes.
Yeah.
Right? we've cited De'Aaron Fox and some others, but yeah, DeJounte Murray. Let's not forget about the DeJounte Murray talk going back a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, maybe they land Wemby. It's just a big whale that no one sees coming. It's great. You can throw him Rudy. Here's another French guy. It'll be great.
Yeah, here's a lot of guys.
Yeah, Dillingham too.
They're all yours. Take them.
So, but real quick here, a shout out to Legit Pizza, Pep's Legit Pizza, the best frozen pizza on the market in my expert opinion. That stone baked, crunchy, cracker thin crust. They got a bunch of different types too. Sausage and pepperoni on your screen. There's a supreme. The sausage and mushroom remains number one in my Legit Pizza power rankings. It definitely lives up to the namesake, and you'll find out why when you go get a couple, maybe for the weekend. You can have that authentic at-home pizza parlor experience. Look for Legit Pizza in the frozen section of a grocery store near you. Also, Federated Insurance powering this reckless speculation today. The 21st annual Federated Challenge supporting Big Brothers Big Sisters is coming up. And this is a 2-day gala and a golf fundraising event that has raised over $57 million for youth mentoring since 2005. 100% of that money goes directly to Big Brothers and Big Sisters and the Federated Challenge Scholarship Program. And this year's event is July 27th at the St. Paul River Center. You can visit federatedchallenge.org to become a sponsor. Federatedchallenge.org to become a sponsor.
Reckless speculation.
All right, Dukes, a couple more minutes here. What's left in your scoop bag before we say goodbye?
Well, let's continue the Wolves theme. Janai Broom, National Player of the Year, Auburn Tigers. I'm told due in town next Wednesday for a draft workout. I know the Wolves also have another draft workout on Monday, so minimum next week. Now, hey, there might be one today or tomorrow, but certainly I'm told next Monday and next Wednesday, the 18th. That'll be the day that Broom is in town. On the Knicks Finch stuff, like from ownership on down, the Wolves are in lockstep. Like, it was a very easy F you, F no. You don't have permission. Not that Chris is interested in going to New York anyway, outside of the Gerson Rosas connection. Like, we've always understood that. Gerson's guy for so long was Chris Finch. Gerson nailed that. Gerson knew all along Chris Finch would be a really good head coach. Gerson now second or third in command in the Knicks front office. So Knicks' interest in Finch, yeah, of course, right? But I'm telling you, from ownership all the way down, they are in lockstep. Like, it was a very easy conversation when the Knicks reached out. Heck no, it's not happening. Thanks for reaching out. We'll talk to you later. But no, you are not allowed to engage Chris Finch's representation in any sort of dialogue. Remember, the Wolves signed Finch to a lucrative contract extension last spring.
Yeah.
Are the Knicks now at 4 or 5 currently employed coaches who they have requested and been denied? Chicago,
Kidd,
Houston, Minnesota?
Finch, Udoka, Quinn Snyder, Billy Donovan. That would be 5.
Yeah, 5. This is incredible.
Dude, they literally went through like 20% of the currently employed coaches and got shot
Plus
down.
Dan Hurley at UConn.
Yeah.
Jay Wright, I guess, is retired. What I don't get, what am I missing? I need to do more research myself on this. What am I missing on Taylor Jenkins? I think Taylor Jenkins is a good coach.
Yeah. He's just sitting out
I
there.
do. We saw it firsthand when Memphis eliminated the Wolves in the playoffs a couple of years ago. What am I missing? Malone, okay. I think Malone's going to be a coach again at some point, and deservedly so. But you hear some stuff on Malone where that could be a tricky fit. What am I missing on Taylor Jenkins?
Yeah, well, it's possible too that, and again, none of this. This is a James Dolan operation for sure. Like, that dude comes in and just messes everything up all the time for 30 years in New York. But wouldn't you want to know? Because the Knicks are sniffing around Durant. Wouldn't you want to know what your team looks like? They should almost wait a month before they bring in somebody, and then all of a sudden Durant's like, I don't like that guy. What do you do? I don't want to do the trade, right? So I don't know. It's an organization that has not been able to get out of its own way for decades, and here we are again, back at the same spot with the Knicks.
It's very, very odd. One more note, Dawn Plitzowite, Gophers women's basketball coach, on the agenda for the University of Minnesota Board of Regents meeting today and tomorrow is the board approving a Dawn Plitzowite contract extension. She put pen to paper on May 14th Her base salary will rise from $800,000 a year to $900,000 a year. She is now signed through 2031. So it is a 2-year extension. Now, she can get an additional year. Like, her team is going to be good next season. To me, she's been knocking on the door of playing in the big dance. If this is the year they break through, they play in the big dance, that would add an additional year. So she can get another year on this contract extension. There's a few different ways, but to me, the most likely path is her team next season makes the big dance. Then she would be signed through 2032. So that will be in the news today. Dawn Plitzowite signing a contract extension. Also, the Twins, it wasn't a surprise. I texted with Declan the other day that they put a claim in on a lefty. It turns out it's Joey Wentz. They tried to sign Tyler Alexander, the former Milwaukee Brewer. He ultimately chose the White Sox. The Twins tried to sign him the other day. So the Twins have been looking for the last few days, Jeremy Zoll, others in the Twins front office, trying to find another lefty. So nice that Danny Coulombe is back, but they've been looking. I wish it was Cody Funderburk, but doesn't seem like the belief is there in Funderburk. But yeah, they've been looking for the last handful of days for a lefty, so they finally found one in Joey Wentz.
Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Good stuff today, dudes. It's fun stuff. Enjoy the rest of the next 2 weeks of wild NBA speculation.
Absolutely. I lost you there for a sec, Phil, so hopefully you didn't rip me to shreds.
Oh man!
Maybe it's my
don't go back. Don't go back and listen.
It was terrible.
I torched generations of Wolfson family members.
Don't say that about
your whole lineage.
Hey, just whatever you do, don't look at Drugie's offensive numbers right now. Please don't.
Oh no, yeah, we're gonna do a full twin show on that one.
Although he had a foul ball last night, furthest ball hit in the game. They played the Minneapolis Millers. Unfortunately, it was foul, but it went a good 300 and something feet. Plus, he pitched 2 scoreless innings and made a great play at shortstop.
I hear he's on the block, but I don't want to talk about it. That's my scoop. He's on the block.
Yeah,
he's being shopped.
I'm looking at a team they play on Monday, Maple Grove. After playing Maple Grove the first time, they could use Drugie. But yeah, we're battling through some stuff.
There he is, folks. Parent of the year, TV man,
Darren
Doogie Wolfson. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Okay, sounds good, boys.
All right, guys.
Take it easy.
Mackie and Judd. See you.